Kitabınızın ismi Pretty Jewish Girl. Gerçekten çok güzel bir kızsınız.
Yo, I'm not the pretty Jewish girl. Pretty Jewish girl annem olur.
Öyle mi?
Evet.
Ama siz de o zaman Ottoman, Osmanlı ve Yahudi karışımı güzel bir kadınsınız.
Now I'm going to switch to English if you don't mind.
Sure.
My father is the Ottoman Turk. My father was born in 1908. He came from Trabzon, and he was living in Istanbul in the 1940s when he met my mother, who was a Jewish girl, a Sephardic Jew, whose family came from the Inquisition in Spain in 1493. So when they met, they fell in love, but they could not be together. Obviously, Muslim father, Jewish mother, could not happen. So they had to run away together against their family, of course.
How they saw each other?
Well, she was working in her father's dry cleaning business. He was working at the American Embassy. And they were working near each other in Pera, I think it was. Near
Pera Hotel?
Pera Palace.
Pera Palace Hotel.
Yeah,
Pera Palace Otel'de tanışmış annesi ve babası.
And when they met each other, of course, a young Turkish girl, she was 17 years younger than him. She immediately came across as very clever, had a lot of joie de vivre. She looked right into his eyes. She was not shy. And he was married, actually. He had 2 sons, but he was not happily married. And so they started to see each other. Her family was very upset. His family was very upset. So they had to run away. They left for Ankara when the embassy the capital of the embassy became Ankara instead of Istanbul. She went with him to Ankara.
Ankara. Oh, okay. So what happened after?
After, they were there for 12 years. And then they finally had a daughter, my older sister. And once they had the daughter, they sent a telegram to my grandmother. None of their family had spoken to them in 12 years. And the telegram said, "You have a granddaughter. Do you want to meet her?" So my grandmother said to my grandfather, "We're going to meet our granddaughter." And they went to Ankara, and the family sort of became together. And ultimately, my father brought us here to the United States.
Türk bir babanın ve Yahudi bir annenin çocuğu ve gerçekten bu iki din, iki kültürün bir arada olduğu bir evde ne ortaya çıkıyor? Neler oluyor? Hangi sorunlar yaşanıyor? Hangi ortak noktalarda buluşuluyor? Sanıyorum çok güzel şeyler olmuş ama.
Well, mesela, if your father is Muslim, you're Muslim. If your mother is Jewish, the Jews consider you Jewish. So I am both religions.
This is strong, two religion.
Very strong religions. And they didn't make us choose. We could, if we wanted to go to mosque, we could go to mosque. If we wanted to go to synagogue, we could go to synagogue. We went to Passover dinner. My father taught us as much Arabic as he could. You know, it was very, very together, just like Turkey was, just like the Ottoman Empire was, where Jews and Muslims and Christians, Armenians, everybody lived together at that time. So that's how it was in our house. People ask me now, well, wasn't it very difficult because they're so different from one another? They're really not that different. We don't eat pork, mesela. We believe in one God. There's one God. So it wasn't so different. Actually, coming here, we were much closer to Jews and Muslims than we were to Americans. Americans were very different from us. That was the cultural hurdle that we had. Also, Turkey was very protective of the Jews during the Second World War. Turkey refused to send the Jews to the concentration camps to Germany. They wouldn't put the Jews on the trains.
The question. Tell us about your book.
I've been here for more than 50 years. And one day I noticed my children don't know anything about Turkey. They don't know anything about the food we eat. They don't know the culture. They don't know the language. And I thought, my father died, I guess, 15 years ago. My mother died 5 years ago. And when I go, my children are going to lose all the connection to Turkey and the Ottoman Empire and our blood. So I thought, I have to write this down. So I wrote down, the first chapter is the history of the Turks from China, across Central Asia, the nomads, how we went, you know, to Trabzon, how my family came from Trabzon to Istanbul. And then after that, I trace the Jewish side, how we came from Palestine to Spain, to the Balkans, and finally to Istanbul, so that they would understand that for my mother and my father to meet is incredible, incredible history. And then how they joined those cultures together, and we came here to the United States, and now another culture is coming inside too, so now it's 3 cultures. And the food that we brought with us, 101 recipes of the food.
101 recipes.
Yeah, of the food we ate at home from the 1950s. So these are old recipes. They haven't changed at all. I know Turkish recipes don't generally change, but this is what it was like in 1958 in Istanbul.
So you cook everything? Same time?
I cooked every recipe, and I put pictures of every step, because especially in the United States or for younger people, they don't know what these dishes are supposed to look like. So every step, this is how you cut soğan, this is how you make sarımsak, you squish it, this is how you wrap dolma, this is how you make baklava, you know, take leaves one at a time, so that people would understand. And then I fed them to my husband. My husband is American. He ate every single one of these recipes, and he was my taste tester, and he loved them. He loved every single one of them. When my father had to move to Ankara, when the embassy went to Ankara, he put my mother in the trunk of the ambassador's car. When he drove the ambassador down to Ankara, my mother was in the trunk.
For why?
To move to Ankara.
Move to Ankara.
Yeah. That's the only way he could take her to Ankara, so she was hiding in the trunk.
Why? Because of...
Well, that's the only way he could get her there. You have to read the book to sort of understand.
I have to read the book, yeah. I just have a review.
But they had a flat tire, and so he had to keep the ambassador in the car. He opened the trunk. He took my mother out, put her on the side of the road, changed the tire, and then the ambassador was looking, so he had to leave my mother on the road, and he went to Ankara, dropped off the ambassador, came back and got my mother. This is the kind of story of my parents.
So interesting. Babası annesini kaçırmış, arabanın arkasında, arabanın bagajına koymuş, kaçırmış. Konsolosun arabasıyla yapmış bunu. Yolda da lastik patlamış ve o sırada da büyükelçi arabadaymış.
It's not that they disliked each other, but they couldn't understand each other. Mesela, my mother loves the Kennedy Center in Washington, opera, theater. My father wanted a nice ev hanım, gel evde otur, güzel yemek pişir benim için, ne olur. Hayır, ben dışarı çıkmak istiyorum, müzik istiyorum, dans etmek istiyorum. It was very, very difficult.
Annesi daha çok dışarı çıkmaktan, müzik, sanat camiasından, onu da takip etmekten hoşlanıyorken, babası da tam bir Türk, eski bir Türk mentalitesinde. Evde oturup, hanım evde oturmalı, yemek yapmalı, çocuklara bakmalı, evde vakit geçirelim.
Evet, öyle istedi.
So finally, what's happened?
It was that kind of tension all the time. Even for me, growing up with an Ottoman father, I wanted to play basketball. I played music in rock and roll bands. I did karate. All of these things, my father, he didn't like this at all. Gel, otur aşağı, gel, çay yap. Güzel bir adam nasıl bulacaksın ya? Koca nasıl bulacaksın bir şeyleri yaparsan? Basketbol nedir bu? Pantolon giymeyeceksin. That kind of thing. When I was 15, I wanted to have a boyfriend. And my father said, "You're no boyfriend for you." The next day he took me on a plane to Turkey. I didn't know Istanbul. I didn't know Turkey at all. I had forgotten Turkish completely. When I got to Istanbul with my family, and I saw, wow, where am I? What is this crazy place? And it was very, very slowly that I began to understand my Turkishness. And I started to learn Turkish again. And I started to understand family and what my father wanted. And since then, I've been getting closer and closer to Turkey, not farther away.
Do you follow the political situation?
Yes.
Turkey and Israel nowadays, or a couple of years?
Yes, my whole life.
Your whole life, but especially nowadays. What is it different than before now?
I should say that the Ottoman Empire and Turkish people in general have always been close to Sephardic Jews and the Jewish people. I mean, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and the Turkish ambassador was asked, what are you going to do to counter anti-Semitism, charges of anti-Semitism? And he was really sort of upset, and he said, Turkish people don't understand anti-Semitism. We don't have anti-Semitism. It's not in our culture to be anti-Semitic. And I think that's right, that people should separate what happens politically between Turkey and Israel and what the Turkish and Israeli people feel toward one another. I think those two things are very, very different.
Where we can get your book now?
You can only get it on my website. It's OttomanTurk, JewishGirl.com. Ottoman Turk, Jewish Girl. .com.
Pretty Jewish Girl.
It's one
and
word.
then your website is the Ottoman Turk JewishGirl.com. So they can just buy from your website?
Yeah, they could just, there's a PayPal button on my website. It also has my email address, or you can contact me. If you want me to sign it to somebody, you know, just drop me an email and I will sign the book for
You're
someone.
going to sign it.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of the Turkish tea. You like Turkish tea?
I love Turkish tea. I like Turkish coffee, and I can read Fall.
You can read it
Fall.
That was good.
It's really interesting. And yani kan çekiyor söylediğim gibi.
Kan çekiyor.
Yeah, I feel very happy when I'm in Turkey. The smell and the food, and even coming into your radio station today, I was nervous. And then I look around at the guys working here and I say, oh, dostlarım, yeah. These are faces I know, you know, people I can trust, people I feel warm with. And then I wasn't nervous anymore. I'm very happy to be here today.
We're so happy too.
Thank you.
Have you here.
Thank you.